is as far back as 1999, we've got people like the CEO of Sun Microsystems standing up and saying, guess what? Privacy no longer exists in this world. And by the way, if you give us all your data, I think it was maybe the Google CEO that said this, if you give us all your data, we'll give you all these cool things like free email, maps, and all the things you just mentioned. But there's no getting around it, man. Data is king now. And with social media and all the things we've been referencing here, someone has a more complete map of humanity than has ever been drawn. And what that does is, with algorithms that were created maybe as far back as the late 1800s, certainly into the early 1900s, they can predict the future. It's a bit like a weatherman trying to predict the weather for tomorrow. Turns around and tells all the people, look, man, if I could put a weather sensor every 15 feet all over the face of this world, I'd get it right 100% every day. It's a bit like that. You see all these data points that are being collected, but when they're data mined and put in algorithms, they can predict the future in a lot of cases to maybe a 98 or 99% certainty. It's crazy to even consider what's going on with all our data.
Well, it's easy to make computer-based predictions when we might be in a computer-based simulation. So the pattern is not that hard to decode, apparently.
Well, the thing about shooting fish in a barrel is that first you have to collect a bunch of fish, and then you got to put them in the barrel. Now, you can't help but to have noticed that our modern world, for whatever reason, has decided to fall in love with its shadow side. Have you found yourself wondering over the last few years why everything seems so dark? You see this darkness in your favorite television show. You see it on the local news every damn night. You see it in your news feeds, no matter where you're sourcing your information from. You see it in the movies, and holy shit, the internet is just choked full of it. Our fellow humans have become infatuated with self-destruction. And theories are numerous as to the how and why and what satanic, demonic forces are behind it all. I played that guessing game too. But today, we need to change direction. Because if we don't, if you don't, you and I will be the ones responsible for the hell on earth that so many people are expecting. You see, thinking is living energy. It's alive, and like any other living thing, it wants to continue to exist. Have you noticed that your thoughts can all too easily run away with you, and that one thought leads to another thought, and that leads to another one, and another one, and another one, until you have built this mental network? And if you agree that your thoughts are, at the very minimum, 50 to 55% responsible for the world you see around you, then would it not be in your best interest to learn how to handle the reality-changing and reality-influencing machine that you have been carrying around with you all the days of your life? Of course it would. It would be very beneficial, and in some cases, even life-saving. But you don't believe it's true, do you? You really don't believe that your thoughts can create and influence reality. Not seriously. Maybe you want to believe it. Or perhaps maybe you've had some, experiences, some anecdotal things happen to you that gave you pause like, damn, interesting. But when it comes to the serious stuff, the life-changing and life-challenging events and opportunities that confront us all, when it comes to those things, what happens then? Well, we fall back to pre-programmed instructions that have been ingrained in us since childhood. That's why Crow 777 can make that statement about data mining predicting the future. Well, shit, of course it can. Your future can be predicted because, we've been collected and stuffed into a barrel, like fish. Take 400 million people, lock them inside a reality cube, 6-side cube, where they can only move up, down, back, forth, left, right, and as they bounce off the walls and off each other, they will begin to make patterns. And from that, I can predict their behavior very, very accurately, almost 100%. It's what we call a controlled environment, or the United States of America. But what would happen if you and I could really think for ourselves? Now, I was working on this big argument I wanted to make on how important your thoughts are and how important it is for you to be the one in control of your thoughts. But I found something better. It just so happens that TrueStream Media did a lot of the heavy lifting for me. So, well, take a look for yourself.
Sterilizing a few jars and cooking some standard rice. We put 3 batches of this food filled with absorbed water to the test, with emotional treatment as the variable.
All right, so here's what we got. So what's this one? This one, this one.
The message is a thought, not the word. Thought, not the words. The vocal mechanism codes the words into vibrations and transmits them as sound across the communications channel, which is, of course, the air.
So here's the results of our 2-month-long rice experiment. And I'm just really surprised, actually, at what we got, because check this out. So let's start with this love rice. This is our love rice here. And I'm going to turn it to the side, and hopefully you can see that, and I'll have close-up shots as well. But this rice actually doesn't look that bad at all. There's no mold in it, if you can see that. There's no mold in this rice at all. It's a little discolored, it's turning a little gray, but there's also hardly any condensation in this jar. And so that, almost from a distance, looks like just normal cooked rice. You wouldn't be able to tell that this has been sitting in this jar for 2 months now. And it's way better than this right here. Looks like a mutated nightmare out of Silent Hill. It's really, really disgusting. Some of this is actually turning orange and red. It looks like it's rusting in the jar. In the front right here, you have this nasty green mold pile that's actually growing fur. There's all kinds of condensation going down the sides of the jar. I mean, it looks really disgusting. There's like a bright orange piece of rice. I didn't even know rice could turn bright orange, but it did. This is really disgusting. That is nasty. It's nasty from super far away, and visually you can see right away there's a huge difference between this jar and this jar. But what I think is actually the most interesting for me was the ignored rice, which also has a ton of condensation in it. In the back, you have what used to be gray rice that's starting to turn black. There's a big black mold spot in the middle underneath here, and the entire thing is covered in what looks like snow, like a big mound of white mold. And there's also a ton of condensation in it as well. And so none of this rice looks the same at all, even remotely. This is rice, this is organic rice that was cooked with reverse osmosis water in the same batch, and then was placed into 3 of the same type of jar that had been sterilized with boiling water in the same exact manner at the same time, placed in the same spot on the counter. And I know the debunkers say, well, just one molecule getting in there, but you should expect that this rice will look even remotely similar. And it doesn't look anything alike. All 3 of these jars are very different. And so how is that explained by just claiming, oh, it's just one molecule in the air? I mean, come on. This is really different from here to here. I mean, this is night and day difference.
A few years ago, it was quite popular to say, I will believe nothing that I cannot see or handle or know with my physical senses. Today, this attitude is considered quite unscientific.
So let's connect some dots and draw some conclusions, okay? First, the power is in the intention. Second, repetition is very important. And third, what you ignore dies. And there is so much more nutrients we can draw from their video, but I want to focus on these 3 things first, okay? So first, let's touch on the power of intention. Notice they did this experiment for 60 days, 2 months. Now, do you think they were able to work up the emotions of love and then hate, or vice versa, every single day for 60 days straight. I'm going to say no, but the results are still clear. They're right there in front of your face, which means to me that it was the intention that was the activating agent. Because think about it. You're doing this thing for 60 days. For 60 days, you're supposed to work up anger or love at an inanimate object. A bowl of rice. Right. You're not going to do it. Maybe you're into it the first week, but after the second and third week, you're going to get bored. So it had to be the power of the intention that made that rice behave the way it was, not necessarily you running around getting all hopped up and firing, raw emotion at it. You don't necessarily need the emotion. That's the intention to have the emotion. You follow what I'm saying? So in other words, you can fake it till you make it. But that only works with the second ingredient, which is repetition. Because an assumption, even if it's false, if you persist in that assumption, it will harden into a fact. In other words, if you persist in your thoughts without stopping, reality will find a way to deliver. And lastly, what you ignore dies. Now, this is very important because it not only shows the power that you have as a creator, but it also gives the perfect tactic to use to overcome any roadblock you may face or any opposition that may come up in your way. Question: do you know why movements and rebellions and political activism fails? Do you know why? Because they fall into one of two traps. Either A, they do a full-on resist the opposition no matter what type of strategy, which results in the opposition matching your resistance point for point with the same intensity, which equals what? Gridlock. Nothing happens. Or B, you see that, usually people hit the gridlock and they see that the only way they can beat the opposition is to use their own tactics against them, the whole fighting fire with fire strategy. Now here, you may achieve a victory in Machiavellian fashion, but you achieve that victory at the cost of becoming the very thing you were fighting against, which kind of defeats the purpose, okay? This is how freedom fighters become tyrants and civil rights leaders become the establishment. And if you look throughout history, this is all you see. This is also why I avoid all these so-called truth movements like they're a damn pandemic, because they are almost all destined to become shills. It's just a matter of time. But if you can renounce the thing, then what happens? The same thing that happened to that rice that was ignored in their experiment. It decayed and died. Now keep in mind, I'm talking about renouncing, not just ignoring. If you try to just ignore something, it doesn't work long term because ignoring only creates a vacuum, and sooner or later it will suck you right back into the mess. But when you renounce, you take your attention away from the resistance and put it somewhere else. So instead of focusing on the problem, you renounce it and you place your attention on the outcome of the solution. I repeat, the outcome of the solution. So you're not giving life energy to the problem. You're not even giving life energy to thinking about the solution or other options even. No, none of that. The only thing you are concerned about and the only place you need to place your attention, your energy, and your thinking is on the outcome of the solution. In other words, how do you want this thing to turn out for you? Once you have that idea, that mental image, that whatever, that is the only place you place your attention. That is the only place you put your energy. That is the only place that you focus your time and your concern and all of your attention. So this is how you deal with the fear porn and this ongoing war on your sanity and peace of mind, because everyone seems to have an invested interest in scaring the shit out of you. The fear porn coming out of alternate media is just as crappy as the fear porn coming out of mainstream media, and they produce the same result: fear. It doesn't matter who's selling it to you, they're selling you the same thing. Fear, okay? Same plus same equals the same. And it all has the same quality, and that is the quality of constriction, because fear turns otherwise noble human beings into powerless statistical machines. Remember, what gets measured gets managed. But you can't be measured, you can't be managed, you can't be scared into being controlled if you can control the outcome. Got it? So AI is about to come online. We all know this. Now, does that have to be an evil plot? Or does it mean we can live in a world without the need for anyone to work to survive? Quantum computers are real. They're here and they're real and they're really proving that we live in a multiverse. So will we open up a portal to the demonic underworld? Or will humankind finally confront the true vastness of the multiverse? Could it be that the only way for us human beings to grow up is to realize just how childlike we really, really are? The earth is not what you think it is, and it looks nothing like what you were told. In fact, the mystics and occultists of old may be more accurate in their drawings and their artistic renditions than Google Maps. So what do you want to do with that? Chase evil and their powers all over the place? Or would you rather start searching for the path to the celestial worlds? You do have choices. But to make these choices, you have to know they exist, first off. You have to know that you have the authority and the power to make the choice. And then you have to know how to place and hold your mind, your attention, and energy where you want to be. This is how you free your mind so that you can then expand your mind in any direction that you want to. And then you can start to see how the dots are connected for yourself. This is why I'm starting with your mind and metaphysics first. And in 2 weeks, on the 27th, we are going to take a true metaphysical approach to this thing we're calling the Mandela effect. We're going to remove the fear because there's nothing to be afraid of. And we're going to give you the power, the authority, and the responsibility back to you. We're going to eliminate that word they. Yes, there is a they. They do have their plans. But if you know who and what you are and how to focus on the outcome, who gives a damn? So, until then, take damn good care of you.